Do you have knee pain and wonder how can I still practice yoga and take good care of my knee? Well, in this video, how to practice knee yoga with knee pain, I'm going to show you some different ways that you can modify the way that you move to make it a little easier for you to still enjoy your yoga practice. Because a lot of times what I find, my name is Todd McLaughlin. I own Native Yoga Center here in Juno Beach for the last 20 years. A lot of folks will have injury and then say, I can't do yoga while I'm injured. And what makes yoga really exciting is when we recognize it is possible to practice yoga even with an injury. So I just want to point out a couple of different tips and tricks that you can use. So I've taken a yoga strap and I've tied it around my knee just so I can pretend that I have a knee injury. It's limiting the amount of flexion that I can do with my knee. And so a lot of times students will wear knee braces when they come to class. And that can be a good idea because it can let the teacher know that there is a knee issue. And it can also be good in relation to just feeling like you have a little bit of support. Not necessary, but an idea. All right, so the first place I'd like to investigate is what's called the Surya Namaskara B in Ashtanga Yoga. And what we can do is first we're going to start to investigate knee flexion. And then the other thing I want to investigate is what we call knee rotation. Right now I'm bringing my leg up and I'm just going to make a really gentle knee flexion. But if I go to grab my foot and bring my foot up into a half lotus, I'm now integrating knee rotation. Or in this case here, I bring my knee up and I'm good, I have flexion. But if I grab a hold of this foot and angle it outward, I now am creating a little bit of rotation in the knee joint. So when healing a knee joint, try to, and remember, always consult with your physician. I'm not offering medical advice. Okay, got that out of the way. But when you're healing a knee joint, we can focus on the straight movement of flexion and extension. So what that's implying is that the ability to take our knee and bend the knee and extend the knee and bend the knee and extend the knee is working on the hinge of the knee joint, and we're just working with flexion extension. I would say avoid rotation with flexion in the beginning and just isolate your movements to ones that involve flexion extension. And we need to pay attention to what is the sensation of my knee while doing the movement. So rule number one, slow down. I recommend practice on your own, practice at home. If you go to a studio, sometimes when you're practicing with other people, we tend to try to keep up and try to follow the teacher and try to show off and impress and all those things. And that's not helpful when healing. So what we want to do in the healing mode is slow down, pay attention to the sensation, and work in a way that you very slowly rehab the joint. So one area that's difficult to navigate is stepping forward into a warrior one. Because usually to bring my leg forward, I might have to go out and around. I might be able to bring my foot forward, I have enough flexibility, but some of us don't have that kind of flexibility. So what I could do is come down on my knee. I'm keeping my leg relatively straight, and I'm going to bring my foot around and forward. And I'm going to first start feeling how much can I bend my knee while keeping the knee above the heel. So in other words, I'm going to try to not let my knee rotate or hang out over one way, and I'm not going to let my knee come in and hang out inward this way. I'm going to try to work the hinge of the knee joint, and I might choose to do my warrior balancing on my left knee. Now that could pose a potential problem when we go to do the other side, because then when you go to put pressure down on the knee, that might be an issue. Being able to bear weight down on the sore knee, that can be a challenge. So then on this one, in relation to warrior, another way that you can do is that if you're in a down dog position, you can take your left foot forward, and that way you have your back leg straight. So when you work your warriors, you can bring your foot forward and work your back leg straight. So the key though here is that when you do the back leg straight, attempt to squeeze your quad muscle really strong. We want to avoid letting the knee bend a little bit and then putting pressure down on the knee while we try to do a lunge. So more importantly, in this case, I have my back heel down on the floor. I can or could raise my back heel up and focus on keeping the leg really straight without flexing or bending the knee at all. And then you can work your warrior here. If you're able to bring your back heel down because you like to do it that way from the Ashtanga angle, then the key is only bend the non-injured knee, the front knee, as much as you can keep your back leg straight. That way, by squeezing the quad, you're engaging the ligaments and tendons around the knee, and it's gonna stabilize the knee joint. So what we wanna do then when you start to move into these angles, I'm only gonna bend my front knee as much as I can keep this back knee straight with a little bit of squeeze in the quad. And the same thing really holds true, but now when we come this way, you are bending your knee. So where there's potential for strength building is with a little bit of bend in the knee. It is a little easier to hold this pose with the leg straight out in front, and you can do a warrior with your front leg straight. One thing you can put emphasis on is just contracting your quadricep muscle, which is going to really, again, bring stability to the knee joint. We don't need to worry about going really deep into the bend right away. What we can do, and actually a good exercise in this one, is just to do a combination of a little bit of bend and extension, flexion, extension. So you're starting to bear a little bit of weight on your knee, but you're just toying with, playing with, how does my knee feel? And can I start to get the movement in the knee where I start to get the muscles coordinated and strengthening? Now, there could be a whole host of issues like a meniscus tear. There can be so many different things that are going on. You could be bone on bone. Your doctor might be saying you need to have a knee replacement. There's a whole bunch of different factors that could be coming into play. It's not easy just to say you should do this or do that. Depending upon what injury you have, it's going to be dependent upon the specific injury. So the moral of the story is you can still practice. You just have to decide, am I going to let my knee bend? Does bending my knee cause pain? And if so, is there a way for me to do it with more relative straight leg? And you're going to be just kind of feeling it out as you go. There's another one that's really interesting in the Prasarita Padottanasana position. I noticed somebody that has a knee issue going on that this posture really triggers the inside edge and the posterior edge of the knee. So what we've done is we're sitting down for that pose and working in a seated angle posture like this. And that way we're reducing the amount of pressure on the knee joint in this particular position. Another thing that we are noticing globally as the yoga community, if I have a knee injury and I start doing one leg balance work, that might be a little bit triggering if it's a bone on bone situation. So we might really need to hold on to something using a wall and be very aware and alert in this process. The other thing when balancing on one leg is that you might need to keep a little bit of a micro bend in the knee. So again, you're going to be toying with, do I want to do this pose with a little micro bend, or would I like to do the pose with the knee in full extension? And it will depend on the injury, which one is going to feel more supportive and strong or strengthening. So play with the ability to have a little bend, a micro bend, or a fully extended knee. The other general rule of thumb in standing poses, when you are letting your leg go into full extension, which means when your leg goes completely straight, it is a good idea to squeeze your quadricep muscle so that it does secure the joint. If you try to balance on the leg and you let your quad soft, then it can bear weight on the extension angle of the knee joint and it can be a little overwhelming. So be aware that we are wanting to engage our quad, whether we have our leg straight, and then the bend of the knee is going to naturally engage the quad due to just the nature of holding the body in the position that muscle has to fire. So those are a couple of key factors there in relation to standing poses. When we get down to the floor, there's a whole bunch of different things that can happen here. One component, so remember I had made mention, if you focus on straight flexion, now I go to bend my knee, when I bring my knee in, say for a pose called Marityasana A. Marityasana A is where we're going to wrap around and catch our hands. Well, if really deep knee flexion, for example, maybe I have a big swollen knee with water on the knee, and now bending it feels tight, it's really stiff. And then I go to do my arm wrap and I can't quite reach the hands. So sometimes I see people really trying to force this bend because they're so intent upon catching the hands. Let go of the hands. Don't worry about the bind. Focus on nice, safe, neutral, gentle bending, and even watch how, with my knee bent, even just transferring my weight a little bit forward, that's going to change the carrying angle where pressure is going to go onto the knee joint. So there's a fulcrum in the knee, and if every time you add weight to a fulcrum, it's going to change where the forces of energy are angling. So the idea is that while you're moving, you're paying very close attention to the sensation of the pose. Now, it makes practitioners really frustrated to find out that even a simple movement like this causes pain. But that's just part of the work we have to do. Pain is real, but suffering is optional. We can choose to suffer or not. And the way that we can choose to not suffer is to just honor what's going on and move the knee in a very gentle way and try to just have fun in the process. Now, when you go to bring your knee over to the side, sometimes this actually starts to put pressure on the inner or outer edge of the knee. Using a prop to stabilize the limb so that there's less potential for pressure to go down on it is really important. So you can use a block. You can angle the block at different heights or angles. You can use a blanket, a pillow, whatever you got. But that way, even if I bear pressure down, my knee isn't going to really move. And so using props like this is really smart. Now, there's another pose in Ashtanga primary series called Trianga Mukha Ekapada Paschimottanasana, and that's where we take our leg and we fold it back. And this can be a real challenge point for people. What I'm doing these days with this one, if this is a challenge point on the knee, I'm having you lie down onto your back. And the way we're going to approach it is to kind of bring the knee in this way. Now notice that, because what we're doing is when we do the Trianga position, basically what's happening, you're in a really deep state of flexion. There is a little bit of rotation in the knee and the hip, and then there's a lot of pressure going down the angle. And so all of that weight is kind of bearing this way in the knee. But the very first thing that we do when we go into this pose is we create knee flexion. So what we do is we say, what's the first thing that needs to move to kind of start the pose? And that's the knee flexion. So all I'm going to do is just focus on the knee flexion, remove the whole internal rotation and pressure on ankle, and just focus on knee. And then that way you can work the beginning stage of the pose. And when you lay down, you're taking all the pressure off the limb. Where we start to feel more and more pressure, obviously, is when we're sitting and bearing weight down against the knee. So if you try to put the poses into a laying down position, for example, there's a pose called Mrdityasana B, where we do a half lotus, and this can be a lot of pressure on the knee. However, what you can do is lie down on your back and just do a very simple external rotation position for your hip. And that's a good way that you can take the weight off of the leg. Because remember, if you're up here and you're putting weight down on the leg, like in a pigeon, there's going to be a lot more pressure on the joint. So we want to remove the body weight off of the knee and then just try to imitate the initial action that the pose presents. And then that is a way that you can still work that angle, take care of your knee, give it space to heal, and enjoy practice and still participate. Maintain your daily practice either at home or when you go into the studio, you can continue to practice as is. Hopefully that answers a few questions that you have. If you have any other questions, please feel free to comment in the comment section. That's pretty easy, and I'll happily answer them for you. Remember, you can check me out at nativeyogacenter.com. I release a new podcast every Friday called Native Yoga Toddcast. Find it on all the stations. Subscribe, like. Thanks for sharing. I wish you a wonderful rest of your Thursday.